Hello, everyone, and welcome to this really important J-stream talking about how firing zone designations are weaponized as a way to dispossess Palestinians in Area C of the West Bank. My name is Shafra Sered, and I am J Street's regional director for the Tri-State in Pennsylvania. And it's really an honor to be moderating this panel with Ori Givati of Breaking the Silence and Samiha from Masafer Yatta. And I'll do some more formal introductions of our speakers in just a moment. But before I hand it over to them, I just want to take a moment to situate this conversation in the larger analysis of Israeli policy in Area C, which makes up about 60% of the West Bank and is an area that is fully administered by the Israeli government. The labeling of firing zone 918 as an enclosed military zone, which we'll talk about in a lot more detail today, is really not an isolated incident. It is indicative of an ongoing pattern of dispossession and displacement that the Israeli government carries throughout the West Bank through a few different tactics, including firing zones, which we're talking about today, through the demolition of Palestinian homes and villages, through the lack of permits provided for Palestinians to build, lack of civilian infrastructure, and others. And all of this pressures and even forces Palestinians from their homes and land in Area C. These activities of the Israeli government have been a big concern for J Street and something that we have been not only tracking, but also advocating about in US politics. In particular, highlighting the demolition of Khan al-Ahmar and the Jordan River Valley with some of our congressional champions, Senator Sanders and Representative Yarmouth from the summer of 2018, as well as the J Street U campaign, Stop Demolitions, Build Peace. So I know we're all aware of the various political changes that have been happening in Israel and in the US. In Israel, of course, the formation finally of a new government, and in the US, the election of President Biden, and the growing pressure on President Biden to more actively address the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But in the background, these issues of demolition and displacement have not disappeared and are ongoing. At the same time, settlements continue to grow. So as Israeli policy forces Palestinians out of Area C, it allows for and in fact facilitates the growth of settlements. These patterns of dispossession and displacement of Palestinians and the expansion of settlements work to further entrench Israel's now 54-year-long military occupation of the West Bank, and is also a process of de facto annexation of parts of Area C. So as currently, the Israeli government is not actively talking about formally annexing parts of the West Bank. This process of de facto annexation continues. So the Israeli government claims that this zone that we're going to be talking about today serves security purposes for Israel. And as you hear from our panelists, including a resident of this area, I think we really have to ask ourselves, why are the human rights of residents of Masafer Yatta sacrificed at the expense of the security of Jewish residents of Area C? And perhaps go even deeper and ask ourselves, is the purpose of these firing zones, and specifically firing zone 918, really about security, or are there other political considerations being made? So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ori Givati from Breaking the Silence. Ori was raised in Emek Chefel. During high school, Ori spent 2 years studying at UWC Costa Rica. Upon his return to Israel, he served in the Armored Corps of the IDF from November 2010 to 2013. Ori completed a BA in International Relations and Political Science at the Open University. He joined Breaking the Silence as an interviewer and now serves as the organization's advocacy director. Ori, take it away.
Thank you, Shifra, and thanks everyone for being here. I have to say it's always really important and exciting for me to participate in J Street activities. And I'll go right into our topic of today. So, look, as Shifra stated very clearly, in the occupied territories and especially in Area C, we see a systematic deprivation of Palestinians from their lands, okay? And there are many different elements to that. Settler violence, home demolitions, declaration of archaeological sites. There are many, many different ways that different policies that we are using in order to make that happen. But today we'll only focus on one of them. And one of them that is very significant and extremely important to understand, which is the declaration of firing zones. And the specific firing zone that we will discuss today is located in the South Hebron Hills. I will now share my presentation. I will use it for the next 10-15 minutes. I'm sharing it right now. I hope it's seen. Is it fine? Do you see it? Yeah? Shifra? Working? Okay, great. So we are talking today about this area, the South Hebron Hills, okay, south of the city of Hebron, the southernmost part of the West Bank. And in this area, there are many different small communities that were formed throughout a very long process that is not related to the situation today. For hundreds of years, these communities were formed in that area. I am crossing through some stuff. Yeah, so hundreds of years ago, the main village, the main city of the area was this city Yatta, and through a long process, small communities were formed around it, small agricultural communities of people that wanted to live next to their lands and created these small villages, small communities around their lands. And this is how all the villages that you see in front of you are formed, okay? So in the map that you see right now, there are these red shapes, and these are Palestinian villages today, okay? This map is true for today. And throughout the years, those villages are formed. Now, we're talking about extremely, we're talking about communities that live in a very specific way, and they have a very unique lifestyle, okay? I will show you a picture of a classic community of that area. And this is how they live, okay? We're talking about this desert area, communities that live and use caves, okay? For example, here we can see, here we can see a cave, an entrance to a cave. We can see some tents, and today also some more, let's say, stable types of structures, but they are called cave dwellers because traditionally and throughout hundreds of years, they used to live in caves. And many of the communities still base their lives on caves, and their economy is based on agriculture. Okay, so livestock, and they grow wheat and sometimes some olives in that area. And this is what they base their lives on. Okay, so very rural communities, desert area, not a lot of resources, that also dependent today on the city of Yatta, the one we just saw, which is the biggest city of the area, and there they sell all their stuff and they buy some groceries and so forth. Okay, so these are the communities that we're talking about. This is how it looks like. This is a picture from recently from that area. Now, before I go on to talk about the firing zone, we have to understand a very basic element of their lives, which is that before the fact that they live in a firing zone, they live in Area C. Area C is part of the Oslo agreements. I'll be very brief. In the Oslo agreements, the West Bank was divided to Area A, B, and C. Area C is 61% of the West Bank. All settlements, all Israeli settlements are there, and also around 300,000 Palestinians, okay? And there are many, many limitations on Palestinians in Area C, but the one I want to mention before I'll talk about the firing zone itself is the fact that Palestinians in Area C cannot build homes, okay? If I'm a Palestinian in Area C and I want to build my home, I need to ask for permits from the civil administration, which is the part of the army that is responsible for civil life in the occupied territories. And in the civil administration, there's a planning committee. Now, this committee is formed by soldiers and mostly by settlers, okay? There is no representation for local communities, local Palestinian communities in the planning committees, okay? So if I'm a Palestinian and I want to build a home, I need to ask for a permit from the army that is occupying me and from the settlers who sit on my land. Okay. Then the figures, yeah, just quickly to see the figures, have a look. This is the most updated data we have. So from 2009 to 2018, 18,770 commencement of construction by settlers, okay, by Israeli settlers. And in the same period of time, 4,422 requests for permits by Palestinians. And out of those, only 85 were approved in 9 years, okay? Why is that? Because most Palestinians don't even bother to even ask for the permit, yeah? Because they already know how the occupation works. And out of those who do request for the permit, look at the numbers, okay? So what happens when I'm a Palestinian and I can't build anything, but my family is growing, but my village is, there is natural growth of the population? I build. And what happens when Palestinians build without getting the permit? Their home is declared illegal, and then we see home demolitions. Okay, not only home demolitions, by the way, also infrastructure. Today, in the area we spoke about, one of the things that were demolished was water pipe. Okay, because if you build illegally, why should you have a water pipe? Yeah. If you build illegally, why should you have a school? If you build illegally, why should you have a bathroom? Yeah. All of those things are part of daily demolitions in all of Area C. Okay, so just an introduction to one part of life in Area C. And now I want to go to the firings. Sorry, yeah. So this is the area of the South Hebron Hills. And if you will look on the right, bottom right of the screen, you will see this brown shaded area. And this is firing zone 918. Okay, I zoomed into it now. So in the 80s, Israel declared this area, the brown weird shape that you see in front of you, as firing zone 918. Okay, a firing zone is a training zone for the military. Okay, I served in the armored corps. I trained in firing zones that were inside the green line. Okay, but this firing zone is inside the occupied Palestinian territories in the West Bank. So this was declared in the 80s, and throughout, and suddenly, the people of these villages that as I explained earlier, lived there for hundreds of years, suddenly find themselves living inside a military training zone of an occupying army, And there were, of course, some incidents. We don't have time to go into all of them. But 19 years after the initial declaration of the firing zone, in November 99, the military deported all residents of the 12 villages in the firing zone. The villages that you see in front of you, Tuba, Sarura, Khalet Adaba, Khalawa, Jinba, all those names that you see in front of you in the center of your screen. And trucks came inside the firing zone, took the property, the beds, the mattresses, the cooking equipment, the whatever they had, dropped it in villages nearby. Okay, so some in Atawani, in this area, some a bit northern to that area, and expelled all of the people. Why? Because they live in a firing zone. It's illegal to live in a firing zone, right? It's also dangerous for you if you live in a firing zone. That was the explanation. Okay, that was the justification. ACRI, the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, together with attorney Shlomo Leker, filed a complaint to the High Court saying that it's impossible. We cannot declare a firing zone on people's lives, on people's villages, and expel them. And the Israeli High Court didn't reach a verdict, but did issue an interim injunction. An interim injunction is some legal thing that they issue before they make a verdict and until they give the verdict. Okay, and in this interim injunction, they say that until we give the verdict, the residents are allowed back into their villages, into the firing zone Masafer Yatta. Okay, all this area is called Masafer Yatta. So they came back in the beginning of 2000, okay, of the year 2000. But they came back with a very significant limitation. In the interim injunction, it was said that they are not allowed to change facts on the ground. What is a fact on the ground? It means you cannot build, right? So on top of the limitations I told you about Area C, another limitation was added. Now, just an example of what does that mean. In 2013, there was a very hard winter in the area, and many structures in the firing zone and around were hurt because you saw how a village there looks like. So when the villagers, when the residents of the area came to fix their homes, it was illegal because they changed facts on the ground. They were fixing stuff. They needed some concrete, right? They needed to put up some new tents. And this is changing facts on the ground, okay? So today, the residents of the firing zone in Masafer Yatta live in a reality where most of their structures are illegal, considered illegal, of course, by Israel, and have demolition orders, including the schools in the firing zone. We have 4 schools, the clinics, medical clinics, 4 medical clinics, okay? Homes, animal shacks, water cisterns that they base their lives on, okay? Even bathrooms, okay? We see very, very frequently a confiscation of bathrooms, which I can tell you that for me, as someone who served in that army, is one of the most shocking. Of course, I'm not prioritizing what is more shocking, but what is more bad. But for me to see the army confiscating a bathroom, it's unbelievable, okay? And this is the reality they live in. Now, just to finish the story, and then I will go to the situation today. The residents of the firing zone also live in a reality when there are trainings in the area, okay? In February, there was a military training in the firing zone, but without live fire, because the court said that it's not allowed to use live fire until there will be a final verdict, okay? I just want to show you how it looks like. I was there, okay? I was there because we knew in advance that the training is about to take place. This is how it looks like. This is from February, 4 months ago, okay? In the entrance of the village of Jinba. This is the reality these people live under until today. And only today, right this morning, there was a blockage of the roads leading into the firing zone. Everything under the pretext of illegal construction, illegal homes, and so forth, okay? Now, of course, there were many different incidents throughout the legal process. And again, I will not go into all of those now, but I'll just give you the latest news, okay? So firstly, in 2013, the state came to the court and said, look, there is a change in our security needs, and we don't need anymore this area that you see here marked, yeah? We don't need this area anymore for security reasons, yeah? By the way, the security reasons will be justification for everything, yeah? Now, if you look carefully in this area, you will find 3 unauthorized outposts, meaning settlements that are illegal in the Israeli law. The struggle for the firing zone started before these existed, but throughout the years, they were formed. And then Israel finds itself in a place when there is a legal struggle against Palestinians in the firing zone, but suddenly there are also settlers there. And magically, in 2013, there was a change in the security needs, and this area was left out of the legal process. Okay, of course I'm generalizing a little bit, but basically that's the state. I know I'm a bit out of time, but I'll take 2-3 more minutes. Okay. So this happened in 2013. There was an attempt. There were attempts to do mediation from 2013 until today, until recently, between the Ministry of Security, yeah, the army, and the Palestinian residents. The latest offer by the military to the residents was that 15 weeks out of half a year, they will not be allowed to live in their homes. Okay, 15 weeks out of half a year. It's more than half of half a year. Yeah, that was the latest suggestion in the mediation attempts. Okay, of course, that the Palestinians were not really happy to take part in this type of mediation when you need to negotiate on a foreign army training on your home for how many weeks a year. Yeah, so of course this wasn't accepted by the Palestinian residents. Now, until a few weeks ago, we knew that the verdict was supposed to come after 21 years by the end of July. But again, it's a bit of a complicated explanation, but there was a postponement, and now we have a few months of postponement for the verdict. There will be another hearing on the 19th of September. Before I finish, a bit of context. We need training zones, right? We're an army, we want to train. I told you, I trained with tanks in firing zones all around Israel. We are not saying we don't need training zones. We're not saying training zones are not important. But we're saying, look at what we're doing here with this firing zone, okay? So first of all, I will tell you that this is, not, of course, not the only firing zone in the West Bank. And the organization Kerem Navot did the research. 22% of the firing zones in the West Bank are used for training, meaning 78% of the firing zones are not really used by the army for training. Okay, and in many of them, there are also illegal settlements and unauthorized outposts. That's first of all. Second of all, let's look at this quote by Ariel Sharon, Minister of Agriculture, who later on was was Prime Minister of Israel. Yeah, and this is what he's saying. I'm translating. This is an official transcript from a meeting held in 1981, and he's saying, "I went to say to the representatives of the army, we want to offer you further training areas. We have a thought that we need to close down training areas around the border in the South Hebron Hills because of this phenomena that I talked about of the expansion of Arab villagers to the desert. We have an interest in expanding the firing zones there, the zones there, and we can add firing zones there, and there is an interest for us that you will be in that area." Okay? Meaning, is not even trying to pretend that it's for a security reason. They are saying out loud clearly that the declaration of this firing zone was to prevent expansion of Arab villagers into those areas. Okay? So, as Shifra clearly stated in her introduction, this is part of the policies and the different mechanisms that we use in order to push Palestinians away from their lands, okay? Part of a process that we see today, which is de facto annexation, while the legal, official annexation was, I will now stop sharing, the Euro annexation was held off for a while. De facto annexation is happening all the time, and this is one of the ways that we are using in order to make it happen. And I'll now give Samicha an opportunity to talk about her experience.
Ori, thank you so much. We're so grateful for the detailed background that you provided that allows us to have a more in-depth conversation. I know I'm still sitting with the way that you described some of the cruelty of this policy of not being able to fix and expand on clinics and schools and negotiating over temporary evacuation of your home and your land. So thank you so much for that. We are now going to be hearing from Samicha, who is an activist from the village of Atwani in the South Hebron Hills, a village that Ori mentioned in his introduction, part of Masafer Yatta. She's in her final year at Al-Quds Open University and is studying English. Samiha organizes with Youth of Sumud, which is an amazing collective of young people from Atwani and the surrounding villages, working together to protect their land and communities in Area C, and to build the movement of strategic, nonviolent grassroots resistance throughout the South Hebron Hills and in all of Palestine. Samiha is also a researcher and interviewer in the Regional Heritage Project, a local effort to document the stories of elders and to record collective memory from Masafer Yatta and Shafa Yatta regions. So Samiha, I know you might not be on camera, but I believe you're there. And we'd love to hear more from you about what it's like to live in Masafer Yatta and to hear more about the work you do with Youth of Sumud.
Hi everyone, it's Samiha Hareni. I'm 22 years old. I'm so happy to be with all of you here. I'm a university student for Al-Quds Open University. I'm studying English literature and a member of Youth of Sumud as a human rights defender in the area of South Hebron Hills, Masafer Yatta. About the firing zone area, the area where I'm living and how it's going here. So we're living in the south West Bank, extended until the Green Line borders of the War of 48. All the Palestinian people here spread out in small villages, living in caves and tents because of the oppression of the Israeli occupation on the Palestinian people in this area. So as Ori was mentioned before about how the lifestyle of the Palestinian people in this area. So almost all the people who's living here is a farmer and using the farmer lifestyle by grazing their sheep, access their land, and be living from all these things and taking care of their lands and their houses in this area. But we are living in sea area. It means under the Israeli occupation control totally. All the Palestinian people's rights is violated daily by the Israeli occupation army and settlers. And they are controlling the life of the Palestinian people to make them giving up and leaving the area to complete their plan to steal more and more land and use it for the settlements and close the area with really settlements. I'm living in Atwani village. That's the gate of the all Masafer Yatta. This means the entrance to reach all the Masafer Yatta until the Green Line borders. Atwani have a long history in the non-violent resistance and in the resistance and in believing in the rights, because Atwani was really nothing. It was just a place where is stone and there is no roads, no electricity, no water, nothing, no life service. We can say this sentence because it was really unable to be lived in. So the old people who is now our grandfather and our parents, that they used to live here in the 90s and before we were born, the village was really destroyed and there is nothing to be used because they were already refugees from 48 that was kicked from Al-Karitain villages and other villages there, so they kicked them out. So Atwani was the last point that they can resist and still have a place to restore it and live it as a normal people in this area. So they start to, and they decide to don't give up and to keep resisting until they have at least a respecting life here, because really there was no electricity, no water, no life service. So they start to do this peaceful demonstration. They try to bring some waters for the area, some electricity, some roads at least to be using, but they really they have very high prices and that by night raids and day raids and the attacks that they really faces in this area. But in the end, they succeed after years, like we can say more than 10 years, to have a master plan, which means that they can build and they can have this kind of service, but they give them like a plan that they cannot go out of it. So it means they give them a master plan about 30 dunum that they cannot build anything out of this. So they start to build their houses and they get a clinic, a school and roads, and at least they start to have life services. But they try to pass all these things for the other villages around, but they don't manage because always the occupation stopped them to help the others, because they want to make their life more harder and harder and leave the area as soon as they can. but the people here are still living in caves and tents. We are in 2021, but there is some people in this world who's Palestinian, who's living in caves and tents because they want to protect their land and because they are fighting for their rights in their non-violent resistance. It's a very hard life, really, to be living in between settlements under a big attack by the Israeli settlers, under protection by the Israeli army that they really protect them when they attack the several Palestinian people who's living in the small villages and in dark caves just because they want to protect their land and they want really don't be kicked out of their land. So they use the most violent strategy with the chippers or with the school children or with the houses itself to make the life of the Palestinian people here really horrible and hard for the reason of kicking them out of this area. So with all this long history that the area is passing on since the 19th until this moment that really have a very long experience in the non-violent resistance. In these days, we as a young people, we start to think that, okay, it's our responsibility now, it's our time to lead the non-violent resistance and to keep it going because all the old people getting tired from all of that because all of them being attacked, all of them being arrested, and now they are old. So they need the power of the society. It means the young people, the youth was living in the area to lead the non-violent resistance and send it for the new generation that's coming also. So we start to think how we can do that because, you know, living under the Israeli occupation, it's mean living fear and living always like feeling fear about yourself, about your family, about your people, about your village, everyone around you, because the really the dangerous is entering in every single details of our days, because the settlers is really far 5 minutes than our houses, and they are the most violent people you can see in the world. That they are really they don't want to see any Palestinian people around. They are just really to kill or to attack or to beat or to do anything just to let the Palestinian people kick it out. And this is something we really leaving it here. It means that even in your bedroom there is no peace, like there is no safe place, because you know that any moment they can be also in your bedroom. So this fear start to grow up with the young people that like me and the others, because we were children at that time and we face all these things. So we see how our parents being attacking, we see our parents how they being arrested or being shooting or being trying to be killed by the settlers or the army. All these things affect us and let us don't know where we are going or what will happen for our future, or which life is waiting us for the next, like where we are going. Really, you start to think so much about this thing as a young Palestinian people living in all this fear around you. And it's so hard if the fear starts controlling our life and our mind, because then we really will not know how we have to live this life with all these things that's happening around us. So in that moment, you feel that the young people is gonna, lost their mind or lost themselves in all this war, we can say, that's happening around them. Choosing the violent way or the non-violent way, or giving up and keep going with all these things that's going on. What we can do with this occupation, what we can do with all this violated for our rights, because we are not living as all over the people and all over this world. So what we have to do in this moment, you feel that really it's so difficult for the young people to decide the way, because really they are going to be lost. For example, I am a member of Youth of Sumud, the Human Rights Defender. It was the best thing that I can do in my life, because it showed me the way or the road that I can follow up my rights and really fight for my rights in peace way, and be far than the violence that is really entering in our small life details in the area. So Youth of Sumud was one of the important example for the youth people to lead themselves and to create a movement or something can help you to choose your way in the non-violent resistance and don't be attacked more by this occupation that we are living under it. So we started in Youth of Sumud in 2017, deciding to leading and keep going in the different activity that the Palestinian people and the activists here starting to use it. and to be really an example for other youth people who want to be an activist, or they want to find their way to resist this occupation far away than the violent, because it will not be a solution. Because we are really looking for the peace, and we should follow it just with peace. So we have to find really a way that we can protect ourselves from inside, our feeling, our mind, to don't be attacked. Because in the body, it's 24-hour in dangerous or under attack. Like they can attack us any moment, they can arrest us any moment, but we have to protect our mind and our feelings to don't be destroyed. So we start in 2017 in restoring Sarura village, trying to back the Palestinian family that was evicted in the 90s. So it was a very dangerous step to create a group from 6 people or 7 people, and totally independent, without any international support, without any outside support. It was really a personal decision. It was just an idea, and a group of young people decided, and refusing the reality of their society, that they are living in under all this attack and oppression by the Israeli occupation army and settlers in South Hebron Hills in Masafer Yatta. So we pay a very high prices by attacked and arrested, and night raids and day raids, attacked by settlers, trying to kill some members of the group, because we were really few, like 6 people. It was really a few number of a group, but we were really believing in what we are doing, because we just put a plan for ourselves, and they want to bigger the group, and we want more young people to be participant in this, and we have really to protect our rights and define it as much as we can as a Palestinian people. Because as you know, also in COVID period, there was no international people in the area all over Palestine. So it was the time for us as a Palestinian to take the responsibility for our people and for ourselves. So we were just the power or for the society. So everyone was trusting us that it's your turn now. So it's feeling lonely. In the same time, you have to be really strong, and you have to lead and to keep going the resistance, because now it's in our shoulder as a young people. And really, as a youth of Sumud, with passing with all this experience that was really difficult, but we are, after 4 years for now, we are really proud about the result that we get for until this moment. For that, I'm with you all today. I am hearing you, my voice. I'm telling you our own story, because we really managed to do that. It was so difficult, and we faced these extremist settlers, and we faced all this oppression, occupation, and army. But in the end, because it's an idea, they can attack us, they can arrest our body, but they cannot kill any idea was born in our mind. So the idea was keep going every time that they put for us very big challenges for us and for our movement and for our vision as a youth of Sumud. Now, after 4 years, we managed to back the families to live in their caves after 20 years, and something was really impossible to do, because to back families after 20 years when they was facing the most violent way by an extremist settlers and extremist army, that they're using the most violent way to kick them out of their homes. You can imagine how the families were feeling fear about their kids, about their life, about their land, about their houses that was just caves and dark caves without any life service. Even this life, they don't let them even, it's not a life, at least live in a cave, but it was the last the last choice for the families to live in, and they really catch it because they don't want to lose their land, and they're ready to live in caves and tents because they want to protect their rights and their land. So it was like so important for us to just trust ourselves and keep pushing ourselves and keep supporting each other as a group, to be really the soul of the team, to protect each other and to protect what we are really going to have and to do for our future. After 4 years of attack, night raids, day raids, stopping, checkpoints, all these things that they use against us, we managed to succeed. And now we grow up the group, and we create and we start to move our idea for all over the West Bank, the places where we can reach. So now Youth of Sumud start to be known not just in Masafer Yatta, start to be known all over the West Bank. That this is so important for us to do this connection with other Palestinian people and all over the West Bank, to be and really an example for other youth people who really don't know what they have to do, or where they have to go in this hard life that we are
hard to hear
facing as
you
a
all of a
young.
sudden.
Again,
I think we can hear you now. You can keep going. Sorry.
it's okay. So I just feeling so proud to be sharing you my own experience as a young Palestinian people living in Palestine, Masafer Yatta, with all this oppression that I'm speaking for you about. Now we're really following a daily activity and different activity with the school children, with the chippers, helping the people on harvesting, even the olive harvest season, even the harvesting season, all the support that the Palestinian people need from our energy and our power as young people here. We start to just voluntary and being a human rights defender and defend our rights as a Palestinian. And what's more important, to exchange our experience with other youth people in Palestine, to have their own experience and to give them our experience, to make the unity that we really need in our reality, in our ground in Palestine. And for me as a young lady, it was so important for me to follow the old ladies was before me, like my grandmom and my mother and all the mothers and the women who was living in my village and the villages around, that they are really big example for what does it mean the power, because she is the mother and the father and the brother and the sister. She's everything in the house. She's being in the first line in the resistance. She being the first line in the house. She being leading more than 10 responsibilities in the same time. And this is one of the big examples that we have to follow as a young people, because they teach us how to resist. They teach us how to keep strong. They teach us how to be leading and to be leaders, because it's not easy. Itself, the feeling of the proud itself is really difficult to reach it, but they make us really feel it because they trust us. And when someone trusts you, you have to do whatever you have. So we really was following what we were planning and our vision really hard, and we really pay all these high prices, independence, because we really want to have the trust of our society and our community on us. And it was so important for me to support the women rules more and to turn on the light on it and to show the world how is the Palestinian people living here, because our areas and 20 villages are not in the map. They are trying to delete us on the map. So even the Palestinian people who's living in Palestine and the West Bank don't know where is Twani located, or what does it mean Twani, if there's any place in the West Bank named Twani, because we are really not in the map and no one know about us. And something we really refuse it. We want to put ourselves and our villages on the map. We should be known. The world and the Palestinian people here should know what's going on here. All the world have to see the oppression of the Israeli occupation against the Palestinian people rights, who's living in between the settlements in dark caves and tents, because they're just really fight for their own rights. And something really unbelievable, how is the Palestinian people are still resisting for this moment. They are living without water, without electricity, without any safe, because they're living in dark caves and sleeping, and the settlers are firing than them 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And this is the big fear that the families can live and can feel and live about themselves or about their children. But they cannot give up, because this is the last solution that they have. And this is the light choice that they have. They're living very like some of the people living the Bedouin lifestyle because they have to leave it. They are not Bedouin, but they have to leave it because of the oppression of the Israeli occupation, and they're not allowed them to have any supported or any things can support them to stay or to resist. Even all these things until this moment, the Palestinian people are still resisting, and this is make me more proud about my people who is living all this, but they are still not giving up. So we feel that, oh my God, it's like now it's our responsibility. Now we have to move. Now we have to let the young people know the rules and to don't lose their self in all this oppression that's happening around them. It's so difficult, but in the end, if you put a very important goal for you, you will reach it one day. So this is what's so important for us as a young people, and for Youth of Sumud to be known now, even to be with you today and to speak with you about this experience. It's enough for me that really I can just let you know and tell you the story of our group and how it can because Youth of Sumud was nothing and was just born from all these violated and all this hard life what's going on here, but start to be something and a very important body for the young people to send their messages even in Palestine or outside Palestine. And this is so important. I really thank you all to give us your time and to give me your time today to hear this experience. I don't have a lot of time, so I just summary what I want to say, but I'm really happy to be with all of you tonight and to speak to you about all this information about the area where I am living and about the Palestinian people lifestyle in this area. And yeah, thank you so much.
Samiha, thank you so much for sharing more about your life in Atwani and the really courageous work of Youth of Sumud and other activists in the area. And I know that Ori shared a link to both Breaking the Silence and Youth of Sumud in the chat. And I really encourage everyone, if you don't already, to follow both Breaking the Silence and Youth of Sumud, two incredible organizations and movements on the ground. We now have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A from the audience. So please continue to put questions in the chat and we'll try to get to as many as possible. The first question we have is for Ori, actually. And some folks had more questions about the legal aspects of the firing zones. How are they declared? Who gets to declare them? How are they expanded or created?
All right, great question. Look, first of all, we have to remember we're talking about the occupied territories, meaning the army is the ruler, right? The law in the occupied Palestinian territories is our military law, okay? Very, very different than the law inside the Green Line, okay? So that's the first thing to state. Secondly, I will say that, look, I'm not a legal expert. I'm sure some other legal authority can really go in the details. But the most important thing we have to understand about this situation is that according to international law, the occupying power is allowed to train, meaning to take over land for training, yeah, for the necessities of the occupation itself. Meaning, they are allowed, let's say, to take some area and train of how to do checkpoints or how to do home invasions, for example. Okay, this is legal according to international law. But the reality that we are seeing in firing zone 918 is a reality wherein Israel said out loud, and there is a quote that we are using this firing zone because it's similar to the South Lebanon area, okay? So, two things about this. First, I was a soldier, I trained myself for South Lebanon, and it wasn't in firing zone 918, it was in a base in the north of Israel that was built exactly to look like South Lebanon, okay? Second, South Hebron Hills is nothing like South Lebanon. South Lebanon is green, forests, okay? South Hebron Hills is a desert. And thirdly, even if it was an area similar to South Lebanon and all that, it's still illegal because it's training not for the purpose of the occupation. It's training for a different issue, and that is illegal. Okay, so it is legal to declare firing zones. It's illegal to use them the way Israel is using them.
Got it. Thank you for that important clarification. It touches on the earlier subject of sort of the security needs versus political needs that are being taken into consideration in these firing zones. The next question is for Samiha. And because of your work and the work of Youth of Sumud, I think more and more international activists and Israeli activists are coming to Atwani and to Masafer Yatta to work with you and meet with you. And I'm curious what that's like for you.
Yeah, this is really important, and we have really some also personal relationship with these activists that came. It's really a friend relation. That's really important. You know that also the beginning of Sumud camp was different activists from Palestinian activists, Jewish activists, international activists that were happening, came and helped in the area. We are always welcome to anyone who's against the occupation and really looking for the peace, and they see the truth because they came here and they live with us in our homes, and they see the attacks by their own eyes. So they are understanding all the subjects, and they are understand how is the situation here going well. So they just supporting what they are seeing and what they are living with us as a Palestinian people in this area. And this is so important for all of us, and we are really always welcome it and thank them to be here and to be supporting the Palestinian people here, especially who is going to take the responsibility with us to accompany the chipper and help also in the school children, and being in the field with the other Palestinian farmer who have to go close to the settlements. And really all of us appreciate all these things that they are doing.
Thank you. The next question I think is for either of you. If the Supreme Court decision goes against the residents of the firing zone and residents are forced to leave again, where will some of these families go? Do you know?
I think, Samiha, I think it's better for you if you want to answer, and if not, I can also give what I know.
The answer that I have, all the Palestinian people here who is living in caves and tents, there is no other places to go for. There is the city of Yatta, that's the area, the closest area for the Palestinian people here. And the Katas about them is the bypass road of 317. So it's the only area that they can keep the Palestinian people for there, but they will be without homes, they will be without any places or even to hold them.
And I just want to add that, look, part of, not part, the reason that we're talking about this is because everyone in this conversation need to be super aware of of the court verdict when it comes, and also be part of the fight to not let these people be pushed away of their homes, because there are no other options. Okay, it's not like there is like, okay, so we'll just move to our other house somewhere else, right? So this is extremely important to understand. And I always say it when I talk to international public, we are not here for education, we are here for acting, okay? And the education is a part of that. So it's very crucial to understand it here.
Lori, that was the perfect transition. I think I'll ask you and then Samiha the same question. We have a couple hundred people on this Zoom today. We'll have a link that everyone can access after to share this with a broader audience. What can those of us at home in the US who are hearing what you and Samiha are sharing and are distraught, what can we do?
All right, so Samiha, you can start again. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, for me, I repeat my thanks for all of you to be and to giving us your time to hear our own story. That's really important for all of us. I want you all to be our messenger in your county and your place. To what now you are here with me and you hear my story and you hear my group story and you hear the reality of the Palestinian people here in this area. I want you to be our messenger and bring our messages all over the world. And thank you so much. And I hope to have you here to see by your own eyes also what's going on here and the reality of the Palestinian people here. And I want just to repeat my thanks, and I hope to see you one day.
Thanks, Samiha. And I'll just add a few more things. Look, being an activist against the occupation and against these issues is a spectrum, okay? And it starts, and everything is important, yeah? And it starts from talking about this and talking with your friends and families and sharing on social media and writing about it and just making this situation as visible as possible to the public, yeah? That's the most simple stuff. It goes on to making sure that your elected officials in the United States, yeah, wherever you're from, you challenge them to take a position to make sure that they are aware and that they want help us to help us end the occupation, yeah. And then it goes on to more active things, and I'll just give you like two examples that I prepared for this event today. First of all, as Shifra mentioned, there is a campaign, I forgot its name, against the demolitions by J Street. Yeah, and this is something that, of course, yes, there are many other issues around, and the elections everywhere and all of that. But this is something that can be extremely significant to restart if there are people here that are part of that, or any other similar campaign, okay? So really taking a stand, directing a targeted campaign about this specific issue. And of course, we will be able to provide everything you need, from information to videos, to lectures, to talks, to whatever necessary that we can help with. And of course, also connection with people in the area. And the second thing I wanted to mention is that we have to learn from settlers, okay? And what do I mean? Look what the settlers did, yeah? They systematically built settlements, yeah? Without looking at what is the criticism and who is saying, they just went on. And their partners around the world supported them and built funds and built, friends of the settler movement, friends of Bet El, friends of Ramallah, friends of Tkoa, or whatever. Yeah. And I think that in the situation today, a very crucial part of the international community support the end of the occupation and want to challenge and want to stop demolition, want to stop the eviction from firing zone 918, will be to create similar things, right? Imagine there is friends of Masafer Yatta in Boston, or I don't know, in Los Angeles or in New York. Yeah, you build relationship with the residents. They inform you directly. Yeah, you build connections. You build a situation when there is a demolition in Masafer Yatta, the community in the States knows about it. Yeah, we build relationships that challenge and destroy the attempts by Israel, unfortunately, to kill any type of dissent and any type of relationship between Israelis and Palestinians and between the international community and Palestinians. Building this type of structures, yeah, makes, first of all, the communities, the Palestinian communities, not to be forgotten. Second, can actually create change and stop what we are doing, what Israel is doing, in some cases, of course. And firstly, and even in the broader perspective, also keeping the solution, yeah, the future solution alive. Because with every day that we allow these things to happen, we are further and further away from a solution. So also very simple things to do, and also very big things to do, but there are many, many opportunities.
Thank you both so much for those answers. I think it's a great way to sort of send us off as we begin to wrap up. And we didn't talk in detail about some of the court cases and legal processes happening around this firing zone today, but I recall Ori mentioning that on September 19th, there'll be a hearing on firing zone 918, and J Street will absolutely be keeping our community updated, and especially updated around calls to action and what we can do on these issues. So I encourage all of you, if you're not already members of J Street, we're putting a link down in the chat below. It's free, it's quick, and it'll guarantee that you're getting updates from Ori, from Samiha, from others on the ground. So a final huge thank you to Ori Givati and Breaking the Silence, and Samiha Horeini and Youth of Sumud for being with us today. And we're eager to continue the conversation in future J Streams. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.